It is a great pleasure to be here among you. It is a very timely moment in the history of the world that we're all joined together to do what we can for the most basic unit, the family. But every country in its own history has its own history, politics, and culture. Consequently, every country has its own approach to solving its social problems. Some countries, particularly in the West, have experimented with policies which have resulted in destabilizing societies rather than strengthening them. Other countries should note these policies and be wary of them to save themselves from the societal consequences and also the financial chaos that has been created by them. In order to make recommendations to correct the problems, it is first necessary to discern what these problems are and the policies that have created the lack of equilibrium in many societies. One of the first problems that we're all facing is the denigration of marriage. And this has come about by way of no-fault divorce and by the legal recognition of cohabitation as an alternative to a committed permanent marriage. No-fault divorce revolution permits divorce without having to prove fault by either of the partners. No-fault divorce allows one spouse to end the marriage for any reason or for no reason at all. It has made every marriage vulnerable to termination, since it arbitrarily dissolves a marriage solely by the self-interested decision by one of the spouses, regardless of the effect on the children and on the other spouse. Marriage is also denigrated by no-fault divorce because the latter are rubber-stamped and issued automatically. This trivializes marriage since it makes it merely an incidental event rather than the leading, permanent, definitive relationship in one's life. In short, no-fault divorce diminishes the solemnity and the permanence of marriage and its irreplaceable contribution to a stable society. But the tragedy today is not only that so many marriages end in divorce, but so little is done by Western society, at least, to assist troubled but still viable marriages. Instead, society emphasizes by no-fault divorce that personal happiness of an individual spouse takes priority over responsibilities to his or her partner and her children. No-fault divorce gives rise to the unwillingness to work through the stresses that are inevitable in every marriage because of the ease of opting out of the arrangement. Cohabitation has also served to denigrate society. Instead of legal marriage, it has become increasingly acceptable in Western cultures at least, and is often used, cohabitation is often used as a way to test drive the relationship to a later committed marriage. This is not a good idea. Research data shows that cohabiting before marriage is harmful to the permanence of and commitment to a later marriage. According to Statistics Canada, by the time the children of cohabiting parents are 10 years old, 63% of them will have seen their parents separate, compared with only 14% of children whose parents are married. Where parents live common law before they're married, 25% of children experience family breakdown, but compared to only 13% for children of married parents who did not cohabit prior to the marriage. According to the World Federation report, the World Family Map Report 215, children are most apt to live with two parents in Asia and the Middle East, where more than 80% of children live with both parents, ranging from 85% in the Philippines and Indonesia and to 94% in Jordan. These countries have not been burdened by the shadow of no-fault divorce. In the US, 27% of children live in a single-parent arrangement. The United Kingdom, 24%. New Zealand, 24%. And in Canada, 20%. The children of these unions experience higher rates of poverty, mental illness, suicide, juvenile delinquency, and criminality. Also, the breakup of couples and children costs at least the Canadian taxpayer $7 billion annually, in that the government, unfortunately, must pick up the pieces of these broken relationships by way of the welfare system and the judicial involvement. Unfortunately, single parenthood has been encouraged and increased by the legal recognition of cohabitation, which provides that couples are cohabit together are given legal support by way of property and financial rights, similar to those provided by a legal marriage. In other words, cohabitation has been legally validated and made respectable by the state, since it provides nearly the same benefits of a legal marriage to a cohabiting couple. This encourages cohabitation and discourages legal marriage. The other great tragedy, certainly throughout the world, is that abortion. The nation's strength always lies in its people. However, one would never know this, judging by the steep decline in population in the Western world. There is no doubt that one of the major reasons for this decline in population is the ready access to abortion. Worldwide, there are 42 million abortions annually. This deliberate loss of life through abortion is both a curse and the destruction of the future of a nation. There will be a lack of workers to support the nation by providing not only essential services, but also taxes to sustain society. Most of all, abortion reflects a society's lack of respect for the dignity and the meaning of human life. When human life is disposable at the discretion of another, then all life is made equally vulnerable. And as discussed so much at this conference this last few days, it's same-sex marriage has also been a detriment to society and to legal marriage of a man and a woman. Marriage between a man and woman has remained a great constant in recorded history. This institution crosses time, religion, culture, and ethnic divisions. There has to be a reason why this has occurred, this solid independence determination of marriage should be a man and a woman. This reality is reflected in the UN Declaration of Human Rights, the UN Covenant of Civil and Political Rights, and the European Convention for the Protection of Human Rights and Fundamental Freedoms, which recognizes the legal status of marriage and spousal relationships applies exclusively to married opposite-sex couples. And the reasons are significant that traditional marriage is upheld and encouraged worldwide. The state has an interest in the institution of a traditional marriage of man and woman because that union procreates the children necessary for the continuation and the survival of society. Same-sex couples cannot make this vital contribution because of biological impediments, which require them to seek reproductive material from outside their union. Although same-sex relationships provided the couple intimacy and economic support, which is valid, but it is still not a marriage. It is another kind of relationship, since it does not make the essential contribution to the public interest. It is a private agreement of a lifestyle choice, but not an official, public, socially valued relationship. And although the Supreme Court of Canada and the Supreme Court of the United States has declared same-sex marriage are legal, it does not make it valid or socially acceptable, and that cannot be accepted. Caught up in this same-sex marriage debacle are innocent children who are being used as tools of social engineering by being adopted and placed in foster care, or adopted or placed in foster care with same-sex couples. Impartial research indicates that these arrangements are truly harmful to children due to a number of reasons: shorter duration of same-sex relationships, a higher rate of infidelity, increased health problems, reduced life expectancy, a higher rate of violence in the relationship, a higher incidence of children becoming homosexual, and also of interference with children sexually. This cannot be tolerated, that children should be used as tools to promote a social, progressive sort of position which is not to the benefit either to the couple or to the children. As an offshoot of same-sex marriage in Canada particularly, we're finding that the problem is homosexuality is now being taught in the school, and children are being taught that a homosexual relationship is the same and equal to a heterosexual. This is not true, and this has been, in the long run, one of the most serious and most damaging repercussions of same-sex marriage being legalized by the Supreme Court of Canada. Because research indicates that teens and their relationships are the training ground for future intimacy, which forms the foundation for relationships later in life. Sex education should help students identify the skills that will produce a stable marriage relationship, and also how to live out their lives with a person of the opposite sex. Instead, current sex education programs do not relate sexuality to meaningful relationships or to love and marriage. Instead, these curriculums stress only safe sex and personal pleasure, which gives a distorted and dangerous view of sexuality, it portrays sex as merely an entitlement which everyone must enjoy, and one's sexual partner becomes only a means to one's only pleasure. And this is another fundamental problem of the formation of our children's character, which is being deformed. Another problem that Western society is now overwhelmed by the widespread use of pornography. Its prevalence has many tragic effects, not the least of which is the denigration of women as mere sex objects who are regarded as valuable only to fulfill a man's pleasure and fantasies, not as a lifelong committed partner in a marriage. Studies in Canada show that 79% of men 80 to 30 years of age view pornography at least once a month, followed by 67% of 39 to 49-year-olds and 49% of 50 to 60-year-olds. Also, 88% of pornography contains physical violence against women. In effect, pornography has become little more than the depiction of rape and sexual assault. It's solely the profit motive that has led to these detestable depictions of violence and humiliation of women. This has had a profoundly detrimental effect on gender relations and has created a desensitization whereby sexual assault is trivialized, promiscuity is regarded as normal, and marriage is as sexually too confining for males. Pornography is now readily available to young people. Almost every teen in North America has a cell phone or an iPod to access pornography. It is no surprise, therefore, that in a survey of more than 5,000 young Canadians showed that 60% of boys from grades 10 and 11 looked at porn sites, and 40% of them did so daily. Pornography has then become sex education for these young adolescents. The consequences to young males is catastrophic. Pornography is ruining their lives and future relationships with women. It is destructive of marriage and family life, as Canadian divorce statistics indicate that 50% of the divorces have involved a partner who's deeply involved in pornography. Pornography causes harm not only to the participants. 66% of pornographic performers have herpes and 7% have HIV, and nearly all suffer from post-traumatic stress syndrome. The consumers of pornography are often unable to engage in healthy sex within the institution of marriage, and society is traumatized by the destruction of families resulting from their addiction to pornography. There are other problems that we must face, and one is the trend toward institutional child care programs with no other options given parents. One-size-fits-all institutional child care programs are detrimental to children and parents, as well as society and the economy. The province of Quebec in Canada established a universal $7 a day daycare system in 1997. Because of its phenomenal costs and the detrimental effects on the children, the Quebec government is now trying to rein in this program. Annual expenditures rose from $300 million in 1997-98 to $2.6 billion in 2014-15, an increase of over 700%. However, the cost of such a program is not the only problem. The National Bureau of Economic Research, a U.S. global economic research organization, released a report on September 15, 2015, on Quebec's Universal Daycare Program. Researchers found that children in Quebec's daycare program had worse health, lower life satisfaction, and higher crime rates later in life than other children. Aggression, hyperactivity, and anxiety resulted from Quebec's child care program. There is no evidence that the program had a lasting positive impact on children's behavior nor has it boosted academic performance. Any modest boost in academic development quickly faded in the first 2 years of school. A book co-authored by developmental psychologist Dr. Gordon Newfield called Hold On to Your Kids indicates that children socialized in daycare bond with their peers and their parent, not their parents. According to the authors, early childhood programs have nothing to offer but parental emancipation. How then can child be cared for, and how can we resolve the problem of caring for children? One, obviously, is to respect and to look upon the role of the mother in the home as absolutely quintessential to the success of society. Further, for those parents or mothers who must go to work for whatever reasons, it is very useful to compare Finland's approach to childcare to that of Sweden. The policy of Finland provides financial support to parents, either through a home care allowance or by subsidized childcare system. About half of Finnish parents choose the home care choice. This may be a possible reason why Finland's education system consistently outperforms many others in European countries. On the other hand, Sweden provides only one choice for parents, a government-subsidized childcare system. A full 92% of all children in Sweden aged 18 months to 5 years are in institutional childcare, which costs the government $20,000 annually per child. Swedish taxes are among the highest in the world, and the tax system is designed to encourage both parents to seek employment and to work in the paid workforce. Providing only one such system in Sweden is contributing to the long-term harm to children, according to Jonas Hammarstrand, founder of the Swedish Institute Majura. Behavior and discipline problems by tests are showing in Swedish schools are among the worst in Europe. Academic performance in Sweden has plummeted. And the most serious issue of all of institutional daycare is that parents in Sweden do not develop the necessary confidence to raise their own children. Their parental instincts often increase, with the result that parents lack the ability to set limits for their children. It is important then that we look to the future. We have a long journey ahead. We have other problems that we must face as a nation, and we must look to these problems. We do this not alone, but we do have the grace of God to assist us, and we must be always aware of that.